Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. I'm GC Smith, and welcome to day 2 of the Dragons of Tarkir spoiler season. We've got a lot of interesting spoilers to bring you today, the last of which I particularly like because of the cycle it's kind of insinuating we're going to have. But let's start, like yesterday, with the mythics, moving on to the rares, and unfortunately we have no commons or uncommons today, so it's just mythic and rares. So the first and only mythic we've had in the last 24 hours, or since I last put up a video, was Shaman of Forgotten Ways. A 2 and a green creature human shaman. Tap. Add 2 mana in any combination of colours to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast creature spells. And Formidable. 9 green green. Tap. Each player's life total becomes the number of creatures he or she controls. Activate this ability only if creatures you control have total power 8 or greater. This is a really cool card. Interesting to see a mana dork at Mythic. Normally these kind of mana dorks that are actually good are generally at rare to stop them being too hard to get hold of. Even with that carrot, it became ridiculously expensive. So I can't imagine how expensive this card will be if and when it becomes the premier mana dork of the format once Carroted rotates. It's not a bad dork. The fact that the mana can only be used on creatures is a little negative in some ways. But it has a really cool activated ability, which while it may never really be cast in standard, is really powerful for Commander. Now I say it won't really be cast in standard, then again I've had games where I reach like 11 mana on turn 5 or 6, thanks to Devotion. So it's not a terrible ability in that sense. And the fact that it's an ability that just kills your opponent if used right is insane. Oh, you've got no creatures, or you're about to cast a creature and you've tap to cast that creature, or in response I'll activate Formidable and kill you. Yeah, interesting ability for sure. As I say, it's probably going to be more relevant in Commander, at least for the current time. Carroted is such a good mana dork that we don't really need Shaman. Though it does give you a reason to be playing Elvish Mystic. I can imagine there's a lot of players that would like to go Elvish Mystic into Shaman and then have on turn 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana on turn 3 for their creatures, which is quite cool. But yeah, not too bad a card. Again, little surprise it's Mythic, but then again, in Limited, it kills people. So, well, if you hit 11 mana, at least it will kill people. So, yeah, not a bad card. Again, something I expect to see some play. Maybe more post-rotation. If it doesn't see much play now, while it's cheap, pick it up, is my recommendation if you ever plan on playing green. Now, moving on to the rares, we have the 5 starter rares. And one of these actually seems really standard playable. And I'll leave you to guess which one it is. I'll just go over each of them before I choose my favourites and talk about each of them in turn. So first up we have the blue-white dragon, Pristine Skywise 4 blue-white, flying, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, untap Pristine Skywise. It gains protection from the colour of your choice in turn to turn for 6/4. We have the blue-black dragon, 3 blue-black, Necromaster dragon, flying, and whenever Necromaster dragon deals combat damage to the player, you may pay 2. If you do, put a 2/2 black creature token, zombie creature token onto the battlefield, and each opponent puts the top 2 cards of his or her library into his graveyard. And he is a 4/4. Then we have the green-red dragon, Harbinger of the Hunt, 3 green-red, flying, 2 in a red, Harbinger of the Hunt deals 1 damage to each creature without flying. 2 in a green, Harbinger of the Hunt deals 1 damage to each other creature with flying for 5/3. Boltwing Marauder, 3 black-red, the black-red dragon, flying, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, target creature gets +2/+0 into end of turn, 5/4. And the Ashrin Sovereign, the green-white dragon, 7 mana for 6/6, 5 green-white, flying, and whenever it dies, you may put it on the top or bottom of its owner's library. So, if you haven't been able to guess which one of those is the really standard playable card, it's the Boltwing Marauder. A 5/4 dragon for 5 in the current format's really good. Its ability combining really well with the aggressive black-red deck, playing creatures, pumping another creature you have things like Rabble Master, combining with cards like Kolagar dashing every turn. This card is really good. And it combines really well with the new 4-drop dragon, which you'll see in just a minute. Overall, not bad set of starter rares, for the intro packs. They're really nice rares, actually, in total. None of them are terrible in limited. They're all really good limited bombs. Necromaster Dragon, very good. Also, actually quite good in Commander. It gives you zombies and helps activate your ability to bring things back from opponents' graveyards. Hence its name, Necromaster. Which kind of actually also leads me to believe certain things will be happening. So moving on, we have the red dragon I just mentioned. Thunderbreak Regent, so lightning themed dragon. I wonder if this is going to be good. 2 red for 4/4 with flying, and whenever a dragon you control becomes the target of spell or ability your opponents control, Thunderbreak Regent deals 3 damage to that player. Yes, it's definitely playable. Doesn't have haste, which is a little bit of a downside, but it's a 4/4 dragon for 4, so it's already ahead of most of the dragons we see. Most of the good dragons we see are 5 mana, which is probably why they have haste. If you had this as a 5-drop, like 3 red, then it would definitely have haste. But right now as a 4-drop, it's really good, and it actually combines really well with the spoiler from yesterday, the Dragon Tempests. Dragon playing this with a Dragon Tempest up on the field. So you play it, immediately bolt something for 1, maybe the opponent, hit them for 4, so you've done 5 damage that turn with it. And then if they try and remove it, it takes another 3 damage to them, as long as it's single target removal. Yeah, this is really cool. I absolutely love this guy. He's definitely playable, and definitely a card I'd recommend picking up if you can get him on the cheap. He's definitely going to see a lot of play. Next up, we have a white card, Radiant Purge, a 1 and a white for an instant with exile target multicolored creature or multicolored enchantment. This card I really like. There's a lot of people poo-pooing it on MTG Salvation, saying it's terrible, wishing it had exile multicolored permanent and that kind of thing, which would make it, I guess, better. Obviously, being able to enchant get rid of any permanent is strictly better than what it is. But you have to look at this as very much a white Doomblade. It's a 2-mana instant removal spell in white. They can actually hit a lot of relevant targets in the current format, and it exiles rather than destroy. This card is currently amazing against the Abs and Aggro deck, which is one of the decks I think is really holding back the blue-white control deck that we started to see at some point. When your opponent is throwing around 2/2s, 2-drops that are 2/2 or 3/3 with either regen or can become indestructible and hexproof really quickly in that game. Blue-white control struggles to deal with those decks, whereas obviously blue-black has a lot of instant speed removal. Blue-white didn't have much. Now this, combined with the blue removal spell they had in the last set, really helps. I mean, again, this hits a lot of creatures in the current format, obliterates Abs and Aggro, which is basically all multicolored, and it can hit a few multicolored creatures and enchantments here and there. The decks that don't have multicolored creatures generally have multicolored enchantments. I'm not saying it's going to be a 4 of in any deck, maybe a 1 or 2 of, and maybe even a sideboard card at most, but I don't think it's as terrible as everyone's making it out to be. I like it, and at like £1 pre-order prices, I think, which is where you'd expect this to be, definitely worth picking up at least 2, I think, for people. Or just trading for them, I think, having in a folder. They're the kind of card people try and, have for their sideboard for a particular meta, so it'd be nice to have a few of those stocked up for if I try and play in PPTQs in the next season. Next up, we have Salumgar's Assassin, 1 and a black for a human creature assassin, a 2/1. With creatures with power greater than its power can't block it, and Megamorph, 2 and a black, when it's turned face up, destroy target creature with power 3 or less an opponent controls. So it's an interesting card. If you play it as a 2/1, creatures with power 3 or greater can't block it, and it's basically a weird beta. The only problem is it can be blocked by everything you'd want it to actually be able to evade, which is Corsair and Caryatid, so not so good just playing on its own. With Megamorph, it becomes slightly better because you can flip it up, destroy a Corsair, and even if they have a Caryatid, well, you're now 3/2 because of Megamorph's ability to put a counter on it, so you can't just be like safely blocked by Caryatid. Interesting card, removal, but the only problem is it only really removes the stuff you don't want it to remove. Like, I can understand that the only things it can't remove are the things that can't block it. But generally things with power greater than 3 are the things you want to be removing with this kind of effect. Generally, if you can mirror or race them, or even just trade by blocking with it after you morph it up, you generally don't really care about those low power creatures. So, interesting card. Okay in limited, maybe even okay in commander. Maybe occasionally playable and constructed in a manifesty style deck, but not something I'd consider playing really myself. I just don't see it. The fact that it's not even a warrior puts it away from like the weird warrior decks you keep seeing popping up occasionally. Next up we have a white dragon, when my page loads. Sun Scorch Regent. Kind of part of the same cycle as the red dragon we've already seen. 5 mana, 3 white for a 4/3 dragon flying, and whenever an opponent casts a spell, you put a 1/1 counter on Sunscorch Regent and you gain 1 life. Cool card. I absolutely love it as a card. It does a few things okay. I know it's not incredibly exciting, and I don't think it's really that much of a playable card, but it's not a bad flyer for white. White, you know, it gets flyers occasionally, mostly angels. For a dragon for white, actually, this is quite good. The fact it gains you life whenever an opponent casts a spell, maybe it's okay in kind of weird life gain deck. I don't know, actually. It kind of helps when against aggro decks, I guess. But again, the decks that would want to run this against aggro, in moderns, and even in standard right now, have better options. Oh, you want to be able to gain loads of life against aggro? Well, you've got Nyx Fleece Ram. You know, you don't need this kind of effect. I like the fact that it ignores Lightning Strike or avoids Lightning Strike while still being vulnerable to Stoke. Though its vulnerability to Stoke is, I guess, the biggest play. If it was a 4/4 dragon, its playability would go up. But then it'd be more of a red dragon, I guess. So not exciting, but kind of cool to see. And then we come to the most exciting card of the spoilers, in my opinion. A card which suggests we're probably going to be getting a whole new cycle of these title cards. And it's Ojutai's Command. 2 white-blue for an instant with Choose 2. Return target creature card with converted mana cost 2 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. You gain 4 life. Counter target creature spell, or draw a card. I really like seeing this simply because it means that we're getting the command cycle in this block. Absolutely, you know, having never played Lorwyn or Modern, did see a bit of Modern Masters and seeing kind of command and watching Modern events like Pro Tour and Star City and stuff. The command spells are really cool, and it's nice to just have a card that does 2 things, but you get a choice of what you want to do. Now, I know what most of you are probably thinking, you know, people are probably comparing this to Cryptic Command. It's not as powerful, quite clearly, but it's far easier to cast in the current format. Triple blue is, you know, in the current kind of format we play, triple blue would be a lot harder to cast than blue-white too. So I think it's fair trade for its power. And even then, if your opponent plays a creature spell, it can very much be a Cryptic Command half the time, because you counter it and draw a card. So it's not too different for the current format. And even then, end of turn, returning creatures with converted mana cost 2 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield, or you gain 4 life. You know, it does a lot of things in the current format. I think it's really good, and I think it's the kind of card that could allow blue-white control to return, especially. They'd be obviously more interested in the bottom 3 abilities. The occasional gaining 4 life and drawing a card to stay in the game. Countering a creature spell obviously is very good, especially if you're like, oh, turn 4, counter Siege Rhino and draw a card. Thank you. Gaining tempo and card advantage is such a good card. So yeah, I absolutely love this card. I definitely think you'll see play in blue-white control as a 3 or 4 of. Yes, against other control decks it's not so good, but even against them, you could bring in creatures post-sideboard, or play it with creatures like, what was it, Soulfire Grandmaster, where buying this back at later game is kind of cool, because that way you always have a counter spell for creatures and stuff. I don't know. I definitely think this will see play in blue-white control. Whether or not it sees play as a 4 of, 2 of, or 3 of, or whatever, is going to be interesting to see. And the fact that it's going to have a big impact on standard quite well as just a really powerful card. Obviously, the most exciting thing, it just means there's going to be a whole cycle. So we're going to see Salumgar's Command, Tarkir's command, Dracoma's command, and Kologan's command. All these cards, it's going to be interesting to speculate what kind of things those are. And I very much actually expect to see another one of those commands in the next day or two, or by the end of the week at least, we'll probably have seen another command. So that's it for the current spoilers for today. This video is actually going on for a bit longer than yesterday, about a minute or so longer, which is interesting. But yeah, that's spoilers done for today. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. And if you're still watching this at this point, ask you what are your favourite spoilers from today? Put it in the comment below, actually. I'd like to hear your opinions. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.